Welcome to the newest episode of Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. I'm your host, Jason Fraley, picking the brains of the top filmmakers, musicians, and artists of our time. DJ Jazzy Jeff headlines a special wine and music festival this weekend at National Harbor. We spoke about his iconic journey alongside the Fresh Prince, Will Smith. Hey, DJ Jazzy Jeff, thanks so much for joining us on WTOP.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where are you calling in from? Are you based out of Philly these days, or where are you?
Yeah, pretty much the Philly, Delaware area, so not too far.
Yeah, that's right outside the DMV, so you don't have
Yeah,
to travel too far for this. All right,
not at all.
we'll tell our listeners why we're talking here. It's a really cool event. It's like a music and wine festival. It's the second annual DC Rosé Festival down at National Harbor. A really cool spot that's popped up over the last couple years. Explain exactly what this is. Is it, our listeners can come out and hear some cool tunes, but also drink a little wine? Is that what's going on?
Listen, we're celebrating in pink, so everybody needs to have their pink outfits on. And we are sipping wine and we are listening to great music. Like, I think this is amazing.
Now, you said great music. Who all is going to be performing alongside you?
Well, I know the day that I'm performing on Saturday, it's BJ, the Chicago kid, who's a good friend of mine, and Estelle, who is also a good friend of mine. So, you have that. And then Sunday, you have Lupe Fiasco, Miriam Hill, and my brother Z Trip.
Oh, yeah, that's going to be a great lineup. And this all happens, he mentioned Saturday, Sunday. So this all happens Labor Day weekend. So it's Saturday, September 4th, Sunday, September 5th. Now, anything else they need to know on their way out there? So they got to wear pink. But where's the wine flowing from? Is it like stands that are set up, or people out on like picnic blankets listening to the music, or what's sort of the layout?
Listen, I'm not sure. I saw pictures of last year or with the last time that they did it, and it looked absolutely awesome. So I think, everybody was dressed festive. The music was really, really good. So I'm super excited about this one.
So this will be your first time participating in it then?
Yes, 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 absolutely.
All right. Now, dote on your fellow artists there. What makes, BJ Chicago Kid and Estelle, Lupe Fiasco, Marion Hill, Z Trip, what makes them such talented artists?
Well, you know what? It's a very diverse lineup, of the people that they have. You got a mixture of hip hop, you got a mixture of R&B. You also have myself and Z Trip, who play a very wide range of music. So this is for music lovers. If you love music and you love sipping on wine, we put the two together, and hopefully it's going to be an amazing night.
It really sounds like it will be. All right. Well, whenever I have someone, as esteemed as yourself on with us, I love to hear sort of the whole story, how you got started, all that stuff. So I know you were, as the song says, Philadelphia born and raised. But what sort of music, before you even started getting into, rap and DJing yourself, before that,
Mhm.
just like as a kid growing up, like what sort of tunes were your parents blasting in the house, or what got you into music in the beginning?
Well, you know what, which I find very, very important. I was the youngest of six. My dad was very deep into jazz, from Wes Montgomery to Jimmy Smith and guys like that. My sisters were into the typical Marvin Gaye, Stevie Wonder, and Philly soul with Gamble and Huff and the OJs. And then my brothers were into more of a fusion jazz type with Chick Corea and Herbie Hancock. Being the youngest, you're the sponge, and I soaked it all up. So when hip hop came along and I adopted that as my music, I didn't realize of, how much history I had stored in me from my older brothers and sisters, which is one of the reasons I am very high on advocating play music in your house for your kids. I know your kids have their music. You need to share your music with them to make them very musically well-rounded.
That's such a great point. Yeah, because they can all be sponges just like you. And then when it comes time to, for lack of a better phrase, squeeze out that sponge and get, for your own music, you have no idea what all influence will start dripping out of that
You really don't. Yeah, you really don't. You don't know how much it impact. Like, it was really funny for me to realize how much I retained from my brothers and sisters in the music as I started to get older. That not only was I a fan of, Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, I was a deep Stevie Wonder fan. I was a deep, Herbie Hancock and Chick Corea fan. I was a deep Wes Montgomery and Jimmy Smith fan, and not really understanding where all of this came from until I got old enough to remember that these were the tunes that were played in the house.
Oh, and it all speaks to each other. It all influences each other. Like Herbie Hancock, you take a song like Rocket. I mean, it doesn't get any
Hmm.
more. It doesn't get any more roots of hip hop than that. So I think what Snoop said that credited Herbie with inventing hip hop at some show I remember. So yeah, it all speaks to each other. Um, cool. Well then, so speaking of when hip hop starts to come along, you said you're listening to Grandmaster Flash and some of those really early
Hmm.
rappers. What was that like in your life? Where are you at block parties in the summer, like like just admiring other DJs, or how did you get into actually saying I'm going to make a go of this as a DJ myself?
Well, it was really that. They had block parties and park parties that you would go to. And I think what I was more drawn to is the control that the music gave, over people. I would watch these guys play songs and people would lose their mind. I would watch them calm down, any kind of tension with music that they played. And I remember watching that and listening to that saying, I really want to be able to do that. Like I want to be able to play music and make people happy. Like that's basically what it was, and that has been my calling ever since.
Absolutely. Well, of course, at that point, then you form the iconic duo DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince,
Hmm.
along with Will Smith. I'm sure you've told that story a million times, but just tell our listeners, how did you actually meet Will Smith? Do you remember your very first meeting, or was it one of those things where like it's a blur because you feel like you've always known him?
I don't remember the first meeting. I remember when we got together because we kind of knew of each other in Philadelphia, Philadelphia on the hip hop scene. Will was in a group, I was in another group. We would see each other at parties and acknowledge. But the very first time was I got picked, or I was called to do a party. And the rapper that I had, I called his house because, of course, this is no cell phone, no texting, no email. I called his house and he wasn't home. And I went and did the party by myself. And I didn't realize that the party was next door to Will's house. And he came in the basement and he asked, hey, what's up? Hey, what's up? Where's Ice, who was my MC at the time? And I said I couldn't get him on the phone. And he was like, hey, you mind if I fill in? And I was like, cool. And we've been together for 37 years.
Wow, that's a really cool story. So it was the happenstance, the chance meeting of a party at next door.
And the fact that Ice did not answer his phone.
Right. See, if Ice picks up his phone, we might not have Fresh Prince. We might not have all of Will Smith's movies. It's funny how history would be different.
Yes, yes, yes.
So thankfully that one went to voicemail.
Yes,
Or what? Or I guess
exactly.
there wasn't voicemail back there. The answering machine. um,
Or it just rang.
Yeah, that's probably more. That's probably more happened. It rang off the hook. Well, thankfully it rang off the hook. Because you guys went off the hook. There's my segue with
Hmm.
your first Grammy winning. It was the first time that won Best Rap Performance in 1989. Parents just don't understand what inspired that song. Obviously you guys are growing up in Philly. Obviously, we all have issues and deal we love, but also as an adolescent, you got issues with your parents. But explain what inspired that song.
What was really funny about that was one of the very early shows that we did off of our first album. We were super excited. We put out music and they were playing it on the radio. And it was really one of those things like we had just come from an amazing show in New York. We spent the night in New York. We were on this incredible high of, rocking the crowd. And I come home and we stop at my house and I walk in the house and I start telling my mom how amazing this show was. And she stopped me and she said, you know what? Do me a favor. I need you to run to the store and get a loaf of bread and a half a gallon of milk right in the middle of my story. And I just stopped, a little deflated. And Will and I started walking up the street. And he looked at me and he shook his head and he said, man, parents just don't understand. And we started laughing. And he was like, I think I'm going to write that. And we wrote it basically off of, you know, as we were and as excited as we were about our accomplishments. My mother was kind of like, listen, I need you to handle some stuff. Like, I'm really not caring about how great your show is right now because I'm cooking and I need milk and bread. And most of the songs that we've written have come off of real life experiences. Like, even with Summertime, Summertime was Will's first year on the Fresh Prince. Um, and he was in California. And being from the East Coast, we have seasons. We have the winter, when the spring comes, the feeling that spring brings you, as the leaves turn and people are coming out and washing their cars. He didn't get that. So he would call me and say, hey, man, what's going on? I was like, yo, it's 72 degrees today. I broke my car out, went to the car wash and got it clean, drove out to the plateau. So I'm naming all of the nuances in Philly that he's not getting in LA. And he missed it so much that he wrote Summertime basically talking about what that feels like. And that's why I think it was so important for people who live in 4-season climates, especially people on the East Coast, because we felt everything that he was talking about, of the barbecue and just how things were in the summer. And unfortunately, people don't get that same feeling in warmer climates because it's kind of like that all year long.
Exactly. It's perfect when it's perfect weather all the time. You can't appreciate it. My wife and I talk about that all the time. I appreciate the 4 different seasons because you know what I mean. It's something to look forward to every time that those leaves turn, like you're saying.
That's it.
Absolutely. Well, take me into the creating that beat for Summertime because everybody, man, it's still played at barbecues to this day. It's like a timeless time capsule. Every time, like you're saying, every time summer rolls around, that's the perfect song. But take me into the creation of the song and how how you decided to loop the word summer, 3 times before you say time. Summer, summer, summertime. How did you come up with the idea for that?
So much of that part was Will. It was just, it's one of the things that we would always do is Will would listen to the music and he would almost write what the music told him to write. And I think based off of Kool and the Gang's Summer Madness, which was already a summer song, based off of him missing Philadelphia, all of those pieces just kind of flowed together. And one of the things that, he would always say is it may take him a week to come up with the concept. It'll take him 15 minutes to write the song once he has the concept. So once he had the concept of Summertime, it was fairly easy for him to write it.
Awesome. And you mentioned that this was right when Summertime came about. It was around the time he had already transitioned out, to Hollywood to shoot The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. A little TV sitcom that you might have heard of.
Just a small one.
Yeah, right. Well, it's funny at the time, in the beginning, maybe it was a small one, but then by the end, man, everybody knew about it. It was amazing. But talk about I guess before we get to the acting part of the show, but that iconic theme song. I mean, were you and Will helping in the creation of that, or how did that come about? Because that's got to be one of the most quotable, memorable
Yes.
songs of all time for a TV show.
It was funny, everything happened really fast when he said he had the show, and we were in the studio, and he was like, "Yeah, Quincy said that they're going to look for someone to do the theme song." And I remember looking at Will, and I said, "There is no way that you're going to be on a TV show and we not do the theme song." So Quincy was like, "All right, cook it up." So I made something really fast in about 15 minutes, and he wrote his part, and we recorded it. Now, I actually recorded and did that song as a placeholder. Like, I really thought this was going to be in the pilot, and then we were going to go back and revisit it and, fix it or do it again or do something different. And we did it, and we sent it in, and that was the last time anyone said anything to us about the theme song. Next thing you know, it's on Monday night, exactly how I gave it to him. and we never got a chance to go back and fix it, which we didn't have to, but we literally made that song in 15 minutes because we thought that this wasn't going to be the official song, and that song has been on the air for 30 something years.
Man, every time that comes on, it's you just smile because you know you're gonna laugh your butt off at the episode that's about to happen, and it's just like a
Hmm.
great time capsule of that era. It's like that, the even like the neon graffiti style text graphics. It
Yeah,
just puts
yeah.
you right in that late '80s, early '90s sort of vibe. I love it. Cool. Well, talk about your recurring role in the show because I think it was sort of a smaller part in season one that you were so popular that they just kept having you back. But talk about how your role as Jazz and that hilarious running joke of Uncle Phil, rest in peace, James Avery, of him chucking you out of the house. How was that? How
Yeah.
was that done? I mean, was it a dummy? I guess they threw out.
No, unfortunately, it was actually me.
It was you.
Um, it was actually me. And they didn't throw me out. I had to jump out onto a mat, but I had to jump out with the appearance that someone was throwing me out, which means my body had to be, pretty much horizontal. Um, but, it was literally one of those things. Will called and said, "Hey, man, they want you to do a guest spot on the show." And I said, "No." And he was shocked. I was like, "Nah, I'm okay," because my focus was so much on the music that I didn't want to take my focus, and even attempt, I mean, that was, of course, you're younger and you're narrow-minded, you're not thinking that you can do both. And he basically came to me with the plea, and he said, "Listen, they want you to do 3 episodes. If you do one and you love it, you got two to look forward to. If you do one and you hate it, you only have two to do." And Will is very convincing. So I was like, "Okay, I'll do it." And next thing you know, 6 years later, I had no desire, no plan of really attempting to do any acting. That was, we had set goals when Will and I first got together that he wanted to do movies and I wanted to do the music for the movies. So it was a little plan altering, but it was amazing. I could, I remember standing on the set some days and looking around saying, "How in the hell did I get here?" Like, I'm supposed to be doing music, and here I am on one of the biggest TV shows on television right now.
Yeah, that's wild. Well, I mean, that's hilarious. It was actually you getting chucked out onto a mattress or something. And I don't know why. All these years, I guess my kid brain thought it was a dummy. I guess just the way you sort of go limp as he throws he throws you out of the
Yeah,
thing. And
yeah. Well, I think the dummy thing didn't work. I think they might have tried it, but I think what happened was I remember one time filming in about 10 different outfits, me getting thrown out, and the next day I had to take off because I was black and blue and sore. And they were like, "Okay, we're not going to do that anymore." That's one of the reasons that you see when you see me walk in with that shirt, you know that they're going to throw me out. Um, and they wouldn't film it anymore. And it was really funny because there were one time I came to the set and I cut my hair, not realizing that you're really not supposed to do that on a
right,
show.
right, right.
You're supposed to let someone know when you do that. But I cut my hair, so it was even funnier because I had a low haircut, and when they throw me out the house, I had this high top fade.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that in later seasons, it's still that same footage that they use of throwing you. So like, right,
Oh,
like
absolutely.
that's sort of the gag. Like we laugh, we're like, hey, that looks like a season one toss. And but
Yeah.
do you have final point on the show because we could talk
Mhm.
Fresh Prince of Bel-Air all day, but do you have a favorite episode? Or I mean, I know they did some sad stuff, where Will's like
Mhm.
with his dad, why doesn't he love me, man? I mean, we all those songs, but then there's so many hilarious things we remember too. But do you have a personal favorite one that busted you up? Either on set when guys were shooting it, or even to this day when you look back and it still busts you up.
I think the one when I got married, I think that one stood out because that was probably the most lines that I ever had on the show. And I remember walking in and we sat at the table and I looked at the title of the script and I started sweating, like, oh wow, like this is a lot. But I really enjoyed doing that. I really thought it was funny, and that's one of the favorite ones that whenever, my kids, who are just really starting to get in the show, they they'll come up to me and start asking me questions about episodes, because it's really funny how that show has transcended generations. It's I know people that were my kids' age when the show was on, and now they're showing it to their kids. So it's amazing.
That's got to be special. Yeah, like you sort of said, it was all sort of your master plan that that you wanted to keep doing music, and Will wanted to go make movies and all that kind of stuff. But
Hmm.
what was it like when, obviously you guys know that you're destined for success after that show. The show's a hit, massive hit. But what's it like when Will goes off? I guess Bad Boys is the first one, but then definitely Independence Day and definitely Men in Black.
Hmm.
Those were, well, three huge movies. What was it like?
Huge.
What was it like watching? This is your old buddy from Philly. Young and clean cut. Doesn't you did he? What was it like, sort of watching him just explode on the movie scene? And did it change him at all, or was it just like you just sat back and just smiled and be like, "That's my boy"?
Well, one of the things, like I said, that was cool is these were things we talked about before they happened. So nothing that he's done or is doing would ever surprise me because we had these conversations. I think the thing that really got me was so many times we put goals in front of us that we don't reach. I think what got me was I was watching him knock down every last one of the goals he set out. So it wasn't surprising, it was more inspirational that, I watched him put in the work. Like, none of that stuff was handed. He worked extremely hard, to knock down those walls. He wanted to be the biggest movie star in Hollywood. And I watched him pursue that until he got it. So, it's that's one of the things to me was the inspirational part about that. Like, please do not believe that you can achieve whatever you want to achieve. It may not be easy, but if you put your mind to it and put your head down, anything is possible.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and like you said, he's like, I want to be the biggest star in Hollywood right now. And he did it. And at the same time, the biggest, Big Willie style is probably the biggest album
Yeah.
at the same. I mean, it was great. Getting jiggy with it, the whole thing.
Hmm.
It was a phenomenal time. Now, didn't he, did, did you help out on that at all? Or no? I remember seeing you in videos for, was it like Will 2K or Freaking It? Like, didn't he have you in a couple videos?
I have helped Will with every music project that he's done.
So what did you help out on Big
Even
Willie style then? What was your
I was
input?
I was one of the producers.
Wow. A lot
I
of people
just
probably
what
forget that.
what happened is when we were DJ Jazzy Jeff and Fresh Prince. Once we finished our deal with the first record company, I did not want to re-sign another record deal. I
Mhm.
was always going to be by Will's side. I was always going to go in the studio and keep my same role. It just didn't matter to me that my name was on the record because I kind of needed a break from so much the music business, but not the music. So I have always gone in the studio, from Big Willie Styles to Will 2K. I was always a producer. I always DJed whenever we did shows together. I just chose to take a more backseat role when it comes to the actual artist part of it.
I love that about you, man. You know what I mean? You see that your buddy is the, obviously the main character of this TV show, and you're sort of like,
Hmm.
you're like, you know what? I think I'm gonna step back here. I'm gonna stay involved in everything. I'm gonna keep my creative stuff. And let's be honest, you'll still make the money off it too. But you're like, you
Hmm.
know what? I'm gonna stay in the back here. I'm gonna let my buddy step in the spotlight, but I'm gonna keep my creative spark going. I think that's so admirable about that. The humility of that is amazing. So congrats and props on that. I admire
Thank
that.
you.
So since you are in the background of some of those albums, what do you have? Do you remember anything like creating the, I don't know, the getting jiggy beat like bang, baka, 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 or the what I don't know what else was on that song? Miami, the boom bang bang party in the city. Like, do you remember creating any of those beats, or how did that actually come about? Like, I want to know some of the nitty gritty details on the nuance of creating those iconic beats.
Well, when we got in the studio to do those albums, it wasn't just me. It was track masters. It was a bunch of other people. I think Will rented out the entire Hit Factory studio, and it might have been people in 5 or 6 rooms creating stuff. Um, and that's how he really liked. He liked going from one room to another, just seeing, what was done and how we can piece it together, especially because that was all during, him filming movies and doing the TV show. So we had limited amount of time to create those records. So it was really all hands on deck. I enjoy, I really enjoyed it because that was one of the first times that we were able to make music with unlimited resources. That, if we were in the studio, we you would have to rent studio time, and you would sit in this room and try to come up with stuff. We've never rented 6 studios at the same time. We've never had it to the point that, we have a really good song and I'm like, oh my God, Drew Hill would kill this. And they pick up the phone and call Drew Hill, and they're there the next day. It was to create with no boundaries was absolutely amazing.
Wow, it's yeah. It really. I think it's like it's one of those all-time records. But last question on Will: do you have a favorite Will Smith movie?
Movie.
I mean, for a while there, he was like a what? They all grossed like 100 million for like 10 years straight or
Yeah.
something wild. But do you have a personal favorite?
I kind of think, ooh, that's kind of hard because, you know, I love so many of them for different reasons. I think that 6 Degrees of Separation was the movie that I looked at him and I didn't see Will.
That was
Like that
early,
was
early
that
one.
Yeah, but that was the movie that made me understand, like, we can really do this. Like, when you are able to come outside of yourself, especially with the people that know you as well as I know him, when you're able to kind of do a movie that people can't connect to the actual actor, means you're really, really good. And I think that was the movie that, I looked and I was just kind of like, wow, like he can really do this. Like, even though I knew he could, but watching that on a screen, I think 15 minutes into the movie, I didn't know it was Will.
You're right. That's the sign of a real talent right there. And he's done so much,
Yeah,
Pursuit of Happiness and Ali and Hitch,
yeah.
and I mean
It's you
he's
can't.
done everything.
Yeah, you can't name them all.
Yeah, we'd be here all day. But I do want to know. I do want to get into a little bit. It hasn't just been Will Smith you've worked with. You've talk about your production company, Touch of Jazz, and and all the other so many other famous artists you've helped develop too over the years. Like we just talked to Raheem Devon like a couple days ago. But like there's been so many.
Hmm.
Remind our listeners really quick if you can. I know it's probably hard off the top of your head, but rattle off some of the huge names that you helped cultivate.
Guys like Raheem, who's a really good friend of mine, Jill Scott, Music Soul Child, Floetry. Um, like I said, I enjoy making music. I enjoy making music more than anything else that I do. And I enjoy making all kinds of music. It's not just hip hop. It's not just R&B. It's just kind of like, I believe that music is the background of the pictures that we see. If you take your favorite movie and put the sound on mute, it's no longer your favorite movie.
Oh
Your
yeah,
favorite
no.
movie has something to do with the music. Um, and I love the emotional connection that music does to people. Everyone has a wedding song. You know, there's music that's played at people's funerals to make people reflect on a life you know, and just those narratives of music has been something that's always driven me. So, you know, when you can collaborate with somebody and make something that they can put into the world, it's great. It's great. So that's, you know, I that's my main focus. You know, I just love being in the studio. I'm in the studio all day, every day, and just making stuff. You know, whether it be for the world or, you know, I tell everybody I have albums that I've made to clean the house.
House cleaning music. That's house music.
Yeah, yeah, literally.
Reinvented the genre right there. All right. Well, before we run, I do want to ask you. We've been talking about movies. Didn't you help out on the Straight Outta Compton for some of like the scratch tracks or something?
Yes, yes. I actually did all of the scratching in the movie. Dr. Dre is a very old time friend of mine. And he reached out and was just like, hey, you know, I finally signed off on this story of my life, and I need someone to do the scratches that was around in that time period to make them authentic. And I was happy, you know, I was happy that he asked me, and, you know, I jumped in. And it was really great to watch how they kind of pieced all of this stuff together. You know, when I went to the screening, and you know, I was happy to help out.
Oh yeah, I think that movie came out really well, and a lot of those stars that were playing the old NWA folks have gone on to be big stars now and other stuff. So,
Yes,
real quick,
yes.
just so we're not talking too much inside baseball, remind maybe a novice listener who doesn't know a bunch about the music or movie biz exactly. Remind them what the scratch, what a scratch overdub is.
A lot of times it's a rhythmic movement of the record. It's almost like a percussion sound. You know, if you would look at you know, a kunga or a bongo or something, but it's just moving the record back and forth. And that's pretty much what the basis of, you know, early hip hop was. It was literally someone taking a beat and going back and forth with the beat, and a rapper rapping over top of the beat. And that's what he wanted to show, because before there were records, there were actually DJs that were basically the band, and the rapper rapped over the DJ.
And if anyone would know that whole history, it is you, sir, DJ Jazzy Jeff. I guess sort of in closing, you've been there from the birth of hip hop to its current state,
Hmm.
really. You've spanned the test of time. How have you seen the genre sort of evolve from those early days? With you said you got into it listening to, well, first jazz and stuff with your parents, the Sponge, but
Hmm.
but Grandmaster Flash, and then of course you DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince, and hip
Hmm.
hop was in its infancy. How have you seen it grown through all of the different iterations, through all the different artists from then to today?
Well, first of all, it's global. That was the thing that, you know, a lot of people didn't understand. I have probably been to more countries than I could ever imagine and name. You know, I was at the point that I was doing pretty much 160 dates a year. Pretty much over 100 of them were international dates. To realize that, you know, hip hop was in, you know, South Philadelphia to South Africa to South Dakota. You know, hip hop has grown and has become a music of the world. And that first and foremost is kind of like, because hip hop isn't necessarily a music form as much as hip hop is a lyrical form over any type of music, which means someone in Brazil can do hip hop rapping in, you know, Portuguese. You know, there's hip hop in Tokyo, there's hip hop in Turkey. You know, when you start to look at the global reach that hip hop has, you know, it's you know, I've been to Bosnia and saw people rocking Public Enemy shirts. You know, hip hop has moved its way, you know, into every nook and cranny in the universe. So it is arguably the biggest music out right now and the most impactful, because people are telling their story, and everybody has a different story depending on where they grew up and how they grew up. And it gives you the landscape for you to tell your story.
You're right. You're so right. It's global. It's universal, and it's so cool that it all started right here, in America. It's one of our biggest
Yeah.
and you were right there on the ground floor. So Congrats to you, man. Congrats on all the success. And we invite everyone to come out to this event down at National Harbor. It's the second annual DC Rose Festival. Again, like he said, it's Labor Day weekend on Saturday, September 4th. It's going to be DJ Jazzy Jeff, Estelle, and BJ the Chicago Kid. And then Sunday, September 5th, we got Lupe Fiasco, Marion Hill, and the godfather of mashups. They call him Z-Trip on Sunday.
Z-Trip. Yes.
And some local acts too. I think Black Alley, the Future Band, DJ Farrah, Flosset, a couple DC area artists too. Anything else you want to say? Why should our listeners come on out? Speak directly to the listeners and, come on out, guys.
Listen, I would advise you to put your swanky outfit on, grab a bottle of rosé, and come out. Make sure you wear some comfortable shoes because I expect you to be on your feet dancing and having a good time.
All right. DJ Jazzy Jeff on WTOP. Thank you, sir. This was great.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us on Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. Remember to hit the subscribe button and give us a 5-star rating if you like what you hear. We'll see you next time. I wanted to take a second to tell you about an app I really enjoy. Living in the DC area is great, and Podcast DC gathers all of the local shows that I like all in one local app. Health, sports, local news, politics, and so much more. Podcast DC is the new local app with hundreds of DC area podcasts to choose from. I can earn exciting rewards just for listening and share the podcasts I love instantly. Available in the App Store or in Google Play, listen local with Podcast DC.